We will start with a disclaimer. This is a FutureCast, a fictional exploration of one possible future based on current trends and emerging technologies. While the companies and technologies mentioned are real, the events described are speculative fiction intended to help visualize potential outcomes. Like any forward-looking statement, actual results may vary significantly. This is not investment advice, predictive analysis, or a guarantee of future events. Consider it a thought experiment in what could be possible if current innovations in food, agriculture, and health converge in transformative ways. Heartland Mart: How a Dollar Store Chain Revolutionized American Health. Nashville, Tennessee, 2036. The old Dollar General on Highway 41 still has the same footprint it did 15 years ago. Same parking lot, same loading dock, same square footage. But step inside what's now a Heartland Mart, and you're walking into the epicenter of a revolution that transformed American agriculture, led to the collapse of healthcare costs by 47%, and proved that the shortest distance between soil and health runs straight through a rural grocery store. I'm standing here with Marcus Chen, the store's Nutrition Navigator, a job title that didn't exist when this was still a Dollar General. Behind him, a digital display shows real-time nutrient density scores for today's produce, traced back to the exact field where each item was grown. A bushel of sweet corn from the Hendricks farm 12 miles away glows with a golden 97 score. Next to it, imported corn from an industrial operation shows a dismal 31.
People vote with their wallets 3 times a day. Once they could see the difference, everything changed,
said Marcus Chen, watching a customer scan a QR code that reveals the complete nutrient journey of her tomatoes, from soil minerals to metabolic impact.
We went from selling calories to selling health outcomes. The transformation wasn't just profitable, it was revolutionary,
said Sarah Martinez, former Dollar General CEO. This is the story of how a struggling discount chain became the unlikely catalyst for America's nutrient density revolution. How a grocery store armed with soil sensors, metabolic data, and radical transparency sparked a transformation that reached from the microbiomes in our fields to the microbiomes in our gut. How Heartland Mart didn't just change what we eat, it changed what we grow, how we grow it, and why. Chapter 1: The War Game That Changed Everything. Nashville, Tennessee, November 2023. Susan Whitfield didn't know she was about to redesign American agriculture when she walked into Aimpoint's agri-food industry wargame. The former Dollar General executive thought she was there to save her rural stores from bankruptcy. What she discovered instead was a blueprint for revolution.
I was given a grocery retail store, leveraged with debt, and a reputation for selling processed food in what was referred to as a food desert, based in rural America, perhaps a version of Dollar General. My job was to revitalize the business,
Whitfield later recalled in her memoir, from discount to density. The war game brought together an unlikely coalition: farmers struggling with commodity prices, ag credit banks reeling from bad loans, seed companies watching their markets shrink, healthcare systems buckling under Medicaid cuts paired with the burden of type 2 diabetes, and grocery chains fighting for survival. For 2 days, they mapped out scenarios for 2030, looking for ways out. What emerged was a radical proposition. What if a grocery store became the nexus point where soil health, human health, and economic health converged?
We saw the grocery as a critical intersection point of customers, farmers, rural banking, and rural health care,
said Susan Whitfield. The Futures team had painted a stark picture. By 2030, rural America would face healthcare costs consuming 35% of GDP, topsoil depletion reaching crisis levels, and a food system that produced abundant calories but scarce nutrition. The systems team identified the barriers: entrenched agricultural subsidies, consumer habits shaped by decades of cheap processed food, and a medical system that profited from disease treatment rather than prevention. But it was the generators, the businesses tasked with adapting to these futures that provided the breakthrough. Whitfield's team proposed transforming Dollar General into Heartland Mart, a chain that would source from local farms practicing regenerative agriculture, provide transparent nutrient density scoring on all products, offer health coaching and metabolic testing in-store, share data between farms, customers, and healthcare providers, and create economic incentives for nutrient-dense food production. They were mapping out a path to affordable nutrition.
2 days of intense craziness with 100 other people. But we found our North Star,
Wrote Whitfield. Chapter 2. The Soil Awakening. Seward, Nebraska, Spring, 2024. Tom Morrison had been farming the same 2,000 acres for 30 years when the Miraterra team showed up with their spectrometers. As a fifth-generation farmer, he'd seen every agricultural trend come and go. But what they showed him on their screens stopped him cold.
Your soil has 1.2% organic matter. Your grandfather's records from 1952 show 5.8%. You're mining soil, not farming it,
The technician explained, pointing to the readout. The Miraterra device, no bigger than a smartphone, had just completed a full spectroscopic analysis of Morrison's fields. But it wasn't just measuring NPK levels like traditional soil tests. It was mapping the complete metabolic potential of his soil. Every mineral, every microbial community, every biochemical pathway that would eventually determine the nutritional value of his crops.
We've been flying blind for 50 years, measuring yield when we should have been measuring health,
Said Tom Morrison, Nebraska farmer. Earth Optics arrived the next week with their ground-penetrating sensors, creating three-dimensional maps of Morrison's soil structure down to 6 feet. The data was sobering. Compaction layers from decades of heavy machinery, carbon-depleted zones where synthetic fertilizers had destroyed soil biology, and vast areas where mycorrhizal networks, the underground fungal highways that transport nutrients, had completely collapsed. But the real shock came when Miraterra's advanced analysis included microbial DNA mapping of his soil samples. The diversity was devastated. Where a healthy soil sample might contain 10,000 different microbial species, Morrison's fields averaged fewer than 800.
It was like looking at a ghost town. All those years of feeding the world meant starving the soil,
Said Morrison. The data chain that emerged was elegant in its simplicity. Miraterra's spectroscopy revealed what nutrients were present and mapped the biological processors. Earth Optics showed the physical structure. Together, they could predict with 94% accuracy the nutrient density of crops before they were even planted. And Heartland Mart was buying. Chapter 3. The Metabolic Map. Bethesda, Maryland, September 2025. Dr. Priya Gupta was 3 years into the NIH's Soil to Cell initiative when her team made the discovery that would reshape American agriculture. Using advanced metabolomics, they'd been tracking how soil minerals translated through plant biochemistry into human cellular function and the gut microbiome. What they found overturned 60 years of nutrition science.
We'd been measuring food like accountants, counting calories, talking macros, and adding up vitamins. But nutrition isn't addition, it's a symphony,
Explained Gupta from her lab at the National Institutes of Health. The NIH team had recruited 50,000 volunteers across 10 states, tracking their dietary intake down to the source farm while monitoring their metabolic markers in real time. Using AI to analyze the patterns, they discovered that the nutrient density of food, not just its macronutrient content, directly predicted health outcomes. A tomato grown in biologically active soil with high mineral content didn't just have more vitamins. It had a completely different molecular structure with thousands of beneficial compounds that conventional agriculture had inadvertently bred out or depleted. These compounds, polyphenols, flavonoids, trace minerals bound to organic molecules, acted as cellular signals, optimizing everything from mitochondrial function to gene expression.
A nutrient-dense carrot doesn't just feed you. It instructs your cells how to thrive.
Said Dr. Priya Gupta from the NIH. The research revealed another shocking truth. The microbiome in healthy soil communicated with the microbiome in the human gut. Beneficial soil bacteria produced compounds that, when consumed through food, helped establish and maintain healthy gut flora. It was a direct conversation between soil and human, mediated by plants. Brightseed's AI platform, analyzing millions of plant compounds, began identifying these beneficial molecules and tracking them from soil to shelf. They discovered that a single variety of purple corn from regeneratively managed soil contained 47 bioactive compounds that conventional corn lacked entirely, compounds that reduced inflammation, improved insulin sensitivity, and enhanced cognitive function. Instead of food causing disease, it could actually cure it. Holobiome took it a step further, demonstrating how these soil-derived compounds impact the gut-brain axis. Their research demonstrated that children eating produce from regenerative farms had 40% lower rates of ADHD, 50% less anxiety, and significantly better academic performance. The implications were staggering. Food wasn't just fuel, it was information. And American agriculture had been producing informationally impoverished food for decades. Chapter 4. The Store Transformation. Rural Tennessee, January 2026. The first Heartland Mart conversion happened in Susan Whitfield's hometown of 2,400 people. The old Dollar General had been hemorrhaging money, competing with 3 other dollar stores in a 5-mile radius. The transformation took 6 weeks and changed everything. Where aisles of processed foods once stood, new refrigeration units displayed local produce and nutrient-dense shelf-stable alternatives, each item accompanied by digital tags that showed its nutrient density score. The audacious platform powered the back-end, connecting local farmers directly to the store's inventory system. When Mrs. Henderson's chickens laid eggs that morning, they were on Heartland Mart shelves by afternoon, complete with a QR code linking to a video of the pasture where the hens roamed. The pharmacy section evolved into a metabolic health hub, where customers could receive real-time testing of their glucose response, inflammation markers, and microbiome health. The data, with the customer's permission, was connected to their food purchases, creating personalized nutrition recommendations.
First time I scanned my blood, the machine told me I was pre-diabetic. Then it showed me exactly which foods in the store would help reverse it. Not pills, food. From farms I could drive to,
Recalled Bobby Stern, a local contractor.
We started selling lifestyle disease cures and prevention, a literal new lease on life for the community,
Said Maria Rodriguez, Heartland Mart health coach. The store's nutrition navigators, retrained from cashiers and stock clerks, helped customers understand the connections. That heritage wheat from the Jacobson farm? Its complex carbohydrates and intact bran meant a glycemic response 70% lower than industrial white flour. Those eggs from pasture-raised chickens? They contained omega-3 levels that matched wild salmon. But the real innovation was the pricing. Using blockchain technology to track true costs, Heartland Mart could show that the $4 dozen eggs, when factoring in their impact on health markers, actually cost less per nutrient than the $1.99 factory-farmed alternative. Insurance companies, seeing the data, began offering rebates for nutrient-dense food purchases for their policyholders. Within 6 months, the store had tripled its revenue. More importantly, the town's diabetes medication costs had dropped 23%. Chapter 5. The Farmer's Revolution. Iowa, March 2027. Sarah Whitehorse had almost sold her 400-acre family farm when Heartland Mart called. 5 generations of corn and soybeans had left her land depleted and her bank account empty. The commodity market paid $4 per bushel for corn that cost $4.50 to grow.
Heartland Mart offered me $5.60 per bushel. I thought it was a prank.
Whitehorse remembered. The catch? She had to transition to regenerative practices and grow for nutrient density, not just yield. The 40% premium over commodity prices seemed too good to be true, but it reflected the real value of nutrient-dense food. Heartland Mart connected her with Pluton Biosciences, whose microbial inoculants could jumpstart soil biology. Kula Bio provided nitrogen-fixing microbes that eliminated the need for synthetic fertilizers. Holganix added biological compounds that enhanced the plant's ability to uptake minerals. The transition wasn't easy. The first year, yields dropped 20% as her soil began to heal. But the nutrient density scores and the price premiums more than made up for it. By year 2, something magical happened.
I walked out one morning and heard it. The soil was humming. Billions of microbes working together, creating nutrition,
said Whitehorse. The testing confirmed what she heard. Miraterra's latest scan showed organic matter had increased to 3.1%. Mycorrhizal networks had expanded to connect 78% of her root systems. The sweet corn she grew tested at 89 on the nutrient density scale, higher than anything at Whole Foods.
We stopped asking, how much can I grow? And started asking, how nutritious can I grow it?
Said Sarah Whitehorse, Iowa farmer. Small farms that had been on the edge of bankruptcy found new life. The economics had flipped. Nutrient-dense production on 40 acres could out-earn commodity production on 400. Young farmers priced out of industrial agriculture could start with small plots and direct relationships with local Heartland Marts. The transformation ended the century-old debate between big and small farms. Size became irrelevant. What mattered was biological activity, mineral density, and the ability to produce food that actually nourished human cells. By 2030, over 40,000 farms had joined the Heartland Mart network. They weren't just growing food, they were growing medicine and restoring human health. Chapter 6: The Data Revolution. San Francisco, California, October 2028. The moment that changed everything came when 10-year-old Emma Thompson scanned an apple at her local Heartland Mart. The augmented reality display on her family's phone lit up, showing not just the nutrient density score of 91, but a complete visualization of her personal health impact.
Based on Emma's genetic markers and current microbiome state, this apple will provide 23% of her daily methylation support, reduce inflammatory markers by approximately 15%, and support optimal cognitive function for the next 6 hours,
the display read. The data infrastructure making this possible was staggering. Every Heartland Mart product features a blockchain record that tracks its journey from seed to shelf. Soil tests, irrigation records, harvest data, storage conditions, all immutably recorded and accessible. The audacious platform had evolved into a massive network connecting 40,000 farms, uploading daily soil and crop data, 12 million customers sharing health metrics, 3,000 healthcare providers accessing nutrition outcomes, 200 universities researching soil, gut connections, and 50 insurance companies calculating risk reductions.
We created the world's first closed-loop nutrition system. Every bite became a data point. Every data point improved the system,
explained Dr. Wei Chen, Audacious's chief data scientist. The AI models grew increasingly sophisticated. They could predict which combination of foods would optimize an individual's energy levels, which soil amendments would produce the most bioavailable minerals, and which farming practices would maximize both yield and nutrient density.
Data made the invisible visible. Suddenly, everyone could see that food was medicine,
said Dr. Wei Chen from Audacious. Privacy advocates initially raised concerns, but the open-source, user-controlled nature of the system alleviated most of these fears. Customers owned their data, chose what to share, and received micropayments when their information contributed to new discoveries. A type 2 diabetic in Tennessee, whose data helped identify a new compound for blood sugar control, might earn $50 per month in data dividends. The transparency transformed shopping. Parents could see exactly how different foods would affect their children's ADH symptoms. Athletes could optimize their nutrition for performance. The elderly could choose foods that supported cognitive function. But the biggest revelation came from the aggregate data. The Heartland Mart network had become the world's largest real-world study on nutrition and health, processing 100 billion nutrition outcome data points daily. Chapter 7. The Healthcare Collapse. Memphis, Tennessee, December 2029. Dr. Robert Harrison had been treating type 2 diabetes at Memphis General for 20 years when he noticed something strange. His patient load was dropping fast.
First, it was 10% fewer new diabetes cases, then 20%. By 2029, we were down 60%. I thought our diagnostic equipment was broken,
Harrison recalled. The equipment was fine. What had broken was the disease-causing food system. The data from Heartland Mart regions told a stunning story. Communities with access to nutrient-dense food saw type 2 diabetes rates drop 67%, cardiovascular disease decrease 54%, inflammatory conditions reduce 71%, mental health medication use fall 45%, and childhood obesity virtually disappeared. Rural hospitals that had been on the brink of closure found themselves transforming into wellness centers. Instead of treating the consequences of poor nutrition, they began prescribing food. Heartland Mart pharmacies became pharmacies, where a prescription might read, heritage tomatoes, 1 pound per week, pasture-raised eggs, 2 dozen per month, purple sweet potatoes, as desired.
We spent a century building hospitals to treat diseases we were causing with our food system,
said Dr. Robert Harrison. Insurance companies, seeing costs plummet, began competing to cover nutrient-dense food. Blue Cross Blue Shield's Food First program covered 80% of Heartland Mart purchases for members with chronic conditions. Within 18 months, they reported saving $3.2 billion in treatment costs. The pharmaceutical industry watched their market evaporate. Metformin prescriptions dropped 70%. Statin usage fell 55%. SSRIs decreased 40%. Companies that had fought the transformation began pivoting, with Pfizer acquiring 3 regenerative farming operations and Merck investing $2 billion in soil microbiome research. Medical schools scrambled to update curricula. The University of Tennessee added a required course, Soil Health and Human Medicine. Harvard Medical School created the first Department of Nutritional Systems Medicine. By 2032, healthcare spending in Heartland Mart regions had dropped from 18% of GDP to 9%. The savings, over $400 billion annually, flowed back into rural communities, funding infrastructure, education, and more regenerative agriculture. Chapter 8. The Rural Hospital Partnership. Springfield, Missouri, March 2030. When Jimmy Patterson showed up at Cox Health's emergency room with what he thought was a persistent cold, the last thing he expected was to revolutionize type 2 diabetes care in rural America. The 47-year-old truck driver from the Ozarks had been feeling run down for months, chalking it up to long hauls and truck stop food.
Doc came back with the blood work looking real serious. Said my A1C was 10. I didn't even know what that meant, but his face told me it wasn't good,
Patterson recalled. An A1C of 10 meant Patterson's blood sugar had been dangerously high for months. He was heading toward kidney failure, blindness, and amputation, the devastating trajectory that had claimed his father and uncle before age 60. But Cox Health had just launched something unprecedented, a partnership with Heartland Mart that would treat diabetes not with just medications, but with food. Dr. Maria Gonzalez, Cox Health's chief of endocrinology, had been inspired by Oklahoma's Fresh RX program. But she wanted to go further.
Prescribing produce is good. Teaching people how to use it to reverse disease, that's transformative,
said Dr. Gonzalez.
We realized our cafeteria staff shopped at Dollar General. Our patients shopped there. It was the hub of rural health. We just hadn't seen it,
said Dr. Maria Gonzalez from Cox Health. The program worked like this. Patients diagnosed with diabetes or prediabetes received a food prescription that could be filled at Heartland Mart. But unlike traditional prescriptions, this came with support. The store's nutrition navigators, trained by Cox Health dietitians, provided cooking classes. The Heartland Mart app tracked purchases and blood sugar responses. Even the receipts became tools, showing how each food purchase affected health markers. Patterson's transformation became the program's poster story. His first medically tailored meal, roasted vegetables from a nearby farm, grass-fed beef, and fermented sweet potatoes, was prepared by a Heartland Mart nutritionist right in the store.
I'd never eaten a beet in my life, thought vegetables were what food ate. But when she showed me how my blood sugar stayed steady instead of spiking, I was hooked.
Patterson laughed. The app gamified his journey. Each week, as he chose foods with higher nutrient density scores, he could see his inflammation markers drop. His receipt showed not just prices but projected health outcomes. A bag of industrial chips, likely glucose spike, 180 milligrams per deciliter, inflammation duration, 72 hours. A handful of properly grown walnuts, glucose impact, minimal, cognitive, enhancement, 4 to 6 hours. 6 months later, Patterson's A1C had dropped to 6. He'd lost 60 pounds without feeling hungry. More importantly, he'd learned to love real food.
Used to think fresh food was for rich folks. Now I know it's cheaper than dialysis,
he said. The success at Cox Health caught the attention of Appalachian Regional Healthcare, serving some of America's poorest communities across Kentucky and Tennessee. ARH faced a grim reality. Their region had the nation's highest diabetes rates and the least access to healthy food.
Our doctors could diagnose disease, but patients went home to food deserts. Partnering with Heartland Mart meant we could prescribe the cure, not just manage the symptoms,
explained Dr. James Thompson, ARH's chief medical officer. ARH went even further, integrating Heartland Mart data directly into electronic health records. Doctors could see not only what medications patients took, but also what foods they purchased. The correlation was staggering. Patients who increased their nutrient density scores by 30 points experienced an average A1C drop of 2.5 points. By 2032, the rural hospital partnerships had treated over 100,000 patients. The results showed average A1C reduction of 3.2 points. Medication costs decreased 67%, hospital readmissions dropped 71%, and patient satisfaction scores reached 94%. But the real victory was cultural. Rural communities that had been suspicious of health food embraced nutrition when it came from their local store, prescribed by their local doctor, and grown by their neighbors.
We didn't change the patients. We changed the food system around them. Turns out that's all they needed,
reflected Dr. Gonzalez. Chapter 9. The Great Food Company Pivot. Chicago, Illinois, June 2030. The boardroom at Kraft Heinz was silent. CEO Jennifer Walsh had just presented the quarterly numbers. Revenue down 40%. Stock price halved. Market share evaporating to companies they'd never heard of 5 years ago.
Gentlemen, we have two choices: transform or die,
Walsh said. The packaged food giants had watched the nutrient density revolution with a mixture of denial and disdain. Surely Americans would never give up their Oreos for purple carrots. Surely convenience would always take precedence over nutrition. They were wrong. The Heartland Mart data was undeniable. When customers realized that a bag of industrial chips would spike their inflammation for 3 days, while a handful of properly grown nuts would enhance their cognitive function, the choice became clear. The scanner apps that revealed nutrient density scores had become as common as checking prices.
We spent 50 years perfecting the bliss point. They spent 5 years revealing the death point,
said a former PepsiCo executive. General Mills went first, acquiring Brightseed for $4.2 billion and redirecting its entire R&D effort toward nutrient density. Within 18 months, they'd launched Heritage Health, a line of cereals made from ancient grains grown regeneratively, with nutrient scores averaging above 80. Nestlé transformed its supply chain by partnering with 10,000 regenerative farms globally. Their new slogan, "From Soil to Cell." Unilever sold off its ice cream division and invested the proceeds in controlled environment agriculture that could guarantee nutrient density year-round. But the real winners were the companies that had never existed before 2025. Soil to Soul Foods, founded by a former Dollar General cashier, reached $1 billion in revenue by selling fermented vegetables that scored 95% or higher on nutrient density. Microbial Meadows created yogurts with soil-derived probiotics that eliminated the need for most digestive medications. The companies that refused to adapt disappeared. By 2032, 6 of the 10 largest food companies from 2020 no longer existed. Their shelf-stable, nutrient-poor products gathered dust as consumers voted with their wallets for food that made them feel alive rather than just full. Chapter 10. The Investment Tsunami. New York City, September 2031. The Soil Health Investment Summit at the New York Stock Exchange would have been unimaginable a decade earlier. However, as BlackRock CEO Michael Martin called the opening session to order, the numbers on the board told the story. $847 billion in regenerative agriculture investments over the past year alone.
Nutrient density isn't just a health metric. It's the best-performing asset class of the decade,
Chen announced. The financial world had been slow to recognize the shift, but once they did, the capital flowed like water finding its level. Farmland producing for nutrient density commanded 3 times premiums over conventional land. Regenerative agriculture bonds yielded 8 to 12% returns. The Heartland Health Index, tracking companies in the nutrient density ecosystem, had outperformed the S&P 500 by 340%. Venture capital poured into agtech startups. Pluton Biosciences raised $500 million to scale its soil microbiome solutions globally. Miraterra's IPO valued the company at $12 billion. A new fund, Soil Capital, raised $5 billion exclusively for transitioning farms to regenerative practices.
We discovered that investing in soil biology delivered better returns than Silicon Valley,
said Sarah Kim from Soil Capital Partners. But the most innovative financing came from the insurance industry. Recognizing that regenerative agriculture reduced healthcare costs, climate risk, and environmental liabilities simultaneously, they created stacked benefit bonds. These instruments paid farmers for carbon sequestered, averaging 5 tons per acre annually, healthcare costs avoided, calculated from customer health data, biodiversity increased, measured by environmental DNA sampling, water quality improved, tracked by IoT sensors, and nutrient density achieved, verified by third-party testing. A 100-acre farm transitioning to regenerative practices could earn $300,000 annually from these stacked benefits, before selling a single crop. The World Bank declared nutrient-dense agriculture the fastest-growing solution to multiple global challenges: hunger, health, climate change, and rural poverty. They launched a $100 billion fund to scale the model globally. Wall Street created new financial instruments: nutrient density futures, soil health derivatives, and microbiome bonds. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange launched the first soil carbon contract, with prices reaching $200 per ton as corporations scrambled to meet net zero commitments. By 2032, regenerative agriculture had attracted more investment than renewable energy. The reason was simple. It delivered returns across multiple bottom lines: financial, health, environmental, and social. Chapter 11. The Environmental Miracle. Colorado State University, April 2033. Dr. Louise Patel stared at the satellite data in disbelief. She ran the calculations again, then a third time. The numbers didn't change.
In 7 years, the Heartland Mart network has sequestered 1.2 billion tons of carbon. That's equivalent to taking every car in America off the road for 3 years,
she announced to her research team. The environmental benefits of the nutrient density revolution were initially theoretical, But as millions of acres transitioned to regenerative practices, the impact became undeniable. Topsoil was building at rates previously thought impossible, up to an inch per year on some farms. Water infiltration increased 400%, ending the flooding and drought cycles. Biodiversity exploded, with bird populations increasing 300% on regenerative farms. Pesticide use dropped 85%, as healthy plants resisted pests naturally. Nitrogen runoff decreased 90%, healing the Gulf of Mexico dead zone.
We'd been trying to solve environmental problems with restrictions and regulations. The solution was incentives. Make nutrition profitable, and environmental healing followed.
Patel explained.
The positive externality of nutrient density was planetary healing. We just had to connect the dots,
said Dr. Louise Patel from Colorado State. The Miraterra network, now monitoring 50 million acres, has shown an increase in soil organic matter from an average of 1.5% to 4.2%. Each percentage point represented 10 tons of carbon per acre, a massive withdrawal from the atmosphere. Earth Optics deep scans revealed carbon being stored 6 feet deep, locked away for centuries. Wildlife returned to farmland. The soil monitoring networks recorded 10,000% increases in soil biodiversity. Beneficial insects, birds, and small mammals thrived in the chemical-free environments. Monarch butterfly populations, once near extinction, rebounded to historic levels. Water quality transformed. The Mississippi River, which had carried millions of tons of agricultural chemicals to the Gulf, began running cleaner than it had since the 1940s. The Gulf dead zone shrank by 80%. Fishing communities along the coast reported catches not seen in generations. But the most profound change was in the farmers themselves.
I'm not fighting nature anymore. I'm conducting a symphony. The soil plays, the plants sing, and health is the music,
Tom Morrison reflected, looking over his thriving fields. Chapter 12. The Cultural Renaissance. Small-Town America, October 2034. Main Street in Hamilton, Iowa, population 1,847, should have been dead. Every economic model, every demographic trend, every expert prediction said rural America was finished. Instead, it was thriving. The Heartland Mart anchored one end of downtown, but it had sparked a rebirth that touched every storefront. The Soil to Soul Cafe served meals scoring 90+ on nutrient density, sourced from farms within 20 miles. The Microbiome Bakery used ancient grains and 48-hour fermentation. The Community Health Center had become a teaching hospital, with medical students coming to study the Hamilton Miracle. 0 new diabetes cases in 3 years. Young families were moving in, drawn by clean air, healthy food, and a lower cost of living that didn't sacrifice quality of life. Remote work made location irrelevant. What mattered was community and health. Hamilton's population had grown 40% since 2030, entirely from urban immigration.
We called it the Great Return. People realized that health, wealth, and happiness grew better in soil than in concrete,
said Mayor Patricia Kim, herself a former Chicago marketing executive.
Rural America went from flyover country to the place everyone wanted to fly to,
said Patricia Kim, mayor of Hamilton. The cultural shift was profound. Farmers became celebrities. Sarah Whitehorse's TikTok channel, showing daily soil tests and nutrient density scores, had 5 million followers. The Regenerative Games, an annual competition for the highest nutrient density scores, drew larger audiences than many professional sports. Schools transformed their curricula. Hamilton Elementary's Soil to Cell program taught children to grow food, test nutrients, and understand their microbiomes. Test scores rose 40%. ADHD diagnoses dropped 60%. The childhood obesity that had plagued rural America vanished. Churches held blessing of the soil ceremonies. The Hamilton Community Church's Creation Care program connected biblical stewardship to regenerative agriculture. Sunday potlucks featured nutrient density competitions. Art flourished. The Hamilton Art Center showcased soil paintings made with different colored earths, each telling the story of Healing Land. The annual Harvest Symphony, where musicians played to crops to enhance their growth, drew visitors from around the world. The town's motto, painted on the water tower, captured the transformation. Hamilton, where health grows. Chapter 13, The Global Awakening. United Nations, New York City, September 2035. The UN Sustainable Development Goals Summit had seen many presentations, but nothing like this. Susan Whitfield, now 72, stood before delegates from 193 nations with a simple message.
We solved it. All of it. And it started with a grocery store.
The data on the screen was staggering. In regions with Heartland Mart-style systems, malnutrition was eliminated. Healthcare costs were reduced 60 to 70%. Carbon emissions were net negative. Biodiversity increased 400%. Rural poverty decreased 80%. Water security improved 90%.
The solution wasn't technology. It was transparency. Once people could see the connection between soil health and human health, everything changed.
Whitfield explained. The model was spreading globally. India's Soil to Society program connected 100 million small farmers directly to urban consumers. Brazil's Nutrient Democracy Initiative had reduced Amazon deforestation by 70% as regenerative agriculture became more profitable than cattle ranching. China's Healthy Soil, Healthy People campaign was transforming both rural livelihoods and urban health.
Every culture has a saying, "You are what you eat." We just forgot it meant the soil too,
said Dr. Vandana Shiva, addressing the UN. The World Health Organization had revised its fundamental approach. Instead of treating diseases, they promoted soil health. The WHO's new slogan, "Health starts in the soil." They documented that every dollar invested in regenerative agriculture saved $7 in healthcare costs. Technology transfer accelerated. Miraterra's spectroscopy systems, now the size of a smartphone app, allowed any farmer anywhere to test nutrient density. Pattern Ag's microbial libraries were open-sourced, enabling local adaptation. The Heartland Mart model was freely shared, with training programs in 50 languages.
But
Whitfield emphasized that
technology was just the enabler. The revolution happened when we remembered an ancient truth. We're not separate from nature. We're part of it. Our health and the soil's health are one.
the UN unanimously adopted the Nutrient Density Protocol, committing to transition global agriculture by 2040. The estimated impact: 2 billion lives improved, 10 billion tons of carbon sequestered, and the reversal of humanity's chronic disease epidemic. Epilogue: The View from 2036. Rural Tennessee, December 2036. I'm back where it all started, in that converted Dollar General that became the first Heartland Mart. Susan Whitfield, officially retired but still stopping by daily, walks me through the produce section. At 73, she moves with the energy of someone 20 years younger, a testament to 7 years of nutrient-dense eating.
People ask me if I knew it would become this big. I didn't. I just knew we had to try something different.
Whitfield says, picking up an apple that glows with a 94 nutrient score. The numbers tell the story. Heartland Mart now operates 12,000 stores across North America. But more importantly, 2.1 million acres farm regeneratively for the network. 147 million Americans have access to nutrient-dense food. Healthcare costs in heartland regions are 52% below the national average. Rural unemployment is virtually eliminated. Soil carbon is increasing by 500 million tons annually. But the real victory isn't in the numbers. It's in the faces of the shoppers. Children who've never known the brain fog of nutrient deficiency. Elderly customers who've reversed decades of chronic disease. Farmers who've found dignity and profit in healing the land.
We proved something important. That business can be a force for healing. That transparency transforms markets. That when you align profit with planetary health, everybody wins.
Whitfield reflects.
We didn't just change what's on the shelf. We changed what's possible,
said Susan Whitfield. As I leave the store, I notice the mission statement etched in the window, the same one Whitfield wrote after that fateful war game in 2023. Heartland Mart, where every purchase heals the soil, nourishes the body, and strengthens the community. The revolution that started in a struggling dollar store had proven a fundamental truth. The shortest distance between a healthy planet and healthy people runs right through a grocery store. We just had to be brave enough to stock it with the truth. The soil is listening, the cells are responding, the future is growing, and it tastes like your grandmother's tomatoes if your grandmother had access to advanced soil science, complete nutrient transparency, and a direct connection between her garden and your health. Welcome to the future of food. You've been shopping here all along.